The invitation arrived on a gray afternoon, thin as a paper cut and just as sharp, and the moment she read the subject line, her chest tightened as if the past had reached out and grabbed her by the throat. 10-year class reunion. Beneath it, the names she had spent a decade trying to forget glowed like old bruises pressed back into the light. They had invited her, the girl they once called the class loser, the invisible one, the joke whispered behind lockers and written in bathroom stalls. The message was cheerful, dripping with false nostalgia, and she felt it immediately. The old ache, the familiar shame, the unspoken intention to laugh at how little she must have become. For a moment, she almost deleted it, but then something inside her shifted, quiet and steady, like a door finally closing on a storm. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet victories that rise from pain, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us how powerful the human spirit can be. Her name was Lena, and once upon a time she had learned how cruel boredom could be when combined with teenage insecurity. In high school she had worn hand-me-down clothes that never fit right and carried the weight of a mother working double shifts and a father who disappeared when the bills became louder than his promises. She was brilliant in ways that never translated into popularity, shy in ways that made her an easy target, and earnest in a world that rewarded cruelty with laughter. Teachers praised her essays, but students mocked her thrift store shoes. Group projects ended with her doing all the work and receiving none of the credit. At lunch, she sat near the vending machines because no one wanted the table with the quiet girl who smelled faintly of detergent and hope. When the yearbook came out, someone had written a single word under her photo with a pen that dug into the paper loser. She learned early how to keep her head down and survive. Graduation did not feel like freedom. It felt like exile. Lena left town with a single suitcase and a scholarship she had fought for in silence, promising herself she would never return. The city she moved to was loud and indifferent, and at first it swallowed her whole. She worked nights cleaning offices while studying during the day, learning how to sleep in fragments and believe in herself when no one else did. There were moments when the loneliness pressed so hard she thought she might fold. Moments when she stared at the cracked ceiling of her tiny apartment and wondered if the voices from high school had been right all along. But something stubborn lived in her bones. She failed exams, retook them. She pitched ideas that were ignored, then refined them until they couldn't be dismissed. She learned skills, stacked credentials, and slowly, painfully, she built a life. Years passed not with sudden triumph, but with accumulation. A mentor noticed her work ethic. A small opportunity turned into a larger one. A project she led quietly succeeded beyond expectations. Lena never announced her victories, she simply kept going. She learned how to speak without apologizing, how to walk into rooms without shrinking. She still flinched at laughter sometimes, still felt the echo of lockers slamming and whispers curling like smoke, but she also learned to breathe through it. By the time she turned 30, she had founded a company focused on sustainable logistics, a niche she had studied obsessively while others chased flashier dreams. The company grew not because it was loud, but because it worked. Investors came, then expansion, then headlines she never searched for. She bought her mother a house with sunlight in every room. She hired people who needed a chance. She slept better. When the reunion invitation resurfaced from the digital abyss, Lena stared at it longer than she meant to. She imagined the gym decorated with cheap banners, the old faces frozen in half smiles, the same hierarchy resurrected for one night. She knew why they wanted her there. The class queen who now sold skincare on social media, the former jock whose glory had expired with his knees, the ring leader of the jokes who still collected laughs by stepping on others. They would expect her to arrive alone, small, apologetic, a punchline revived. The thought hurt, but not the way it used to. It hurt like a scar aches before rain, a reminder rather than a wound. She accepted the invitation without explanation. The weeks leading up to the reunion were heavy with memory. Lena found herself revisiting old notebooks, the margins filled with plans she once believed were impossible. She remembered the counselor who suggested realistic goals, the classmates who suggested she disappear. She remembered the day she cried in the bathroom because someone hid her shoes during gym, and the day she decided to apply for scholarships anyway. These memories did not weaken her now, they sharpened her resolve. She chose a dress that felt like armor and grace combined, simple and elegant, the kind that did not beg for approval. She booked a flight that landed hours before the event and reserved a quiet hotel room to breathe. The day of the reunion dawned clear and blue, the kind of day that made everything feel possible. Lena woke early, watched the city stretch awake, and made a call she had considered and reconsidered. The helicopter was not a stunt, not a weapon, not revenge. It was logistics. Her company had a regional facility nearby, and she needed to inspect it. The timing was efficient. The message it sent was unintended, or perhaps inevitable. She boarded with calm hands and a steady heart, the rotors lifting her above the roads she once walked with eyes downcast. From the air, the town looked smaller, quieter, less powerful than it had in her memory. As evening fell, the gym filled with laughter and recycled stories. Banners proclaimed a decade of memories, though most of them were selectively remembered. People compared careers, marriages, waistlines. Old roles snapped back into place like magnets finding north. When the noise peaked and the room buzzed with comfortable superiority, a distant sound cut through the air. At first it was mistaken for traffic, then for thunder. Heads turned. The sound grew louder, deliberate, unmistakable outside. The wind stirred and lights flickered as the helicopter descended onto the field beside the school, the grass bending under the force of arrival. Lena stepped out into the evening with measured grace, the world briefly reduced to motion and sound. She walked toward the entrance not with a smile meant to impress, but with a calm that came from surviving. Inside, conversations stalled and eyes widened. The narrative everyone had prepared collapsing under the weight of reality. She did not scan the room for approval or flinch at the attention. She moved through it as someone who had earned her space. The faces she passed registered surprise, confusion, something like regret. Some tried to laugh it off, others looked away. A few stared as if seeing her for the first time. The reunion unfolded in a way no one had anticipated. People approached her with questions that masked disbelief, with congratulations that arrived late and heavy. Lena answered politely, briefly, without embellishment. She did not recount her struggles or list her accomplishments. She listened more than she spoke, and in doing so she noticed the cracks in the lives that once seemed so assured. The class queen's smile trembled with exhaustion. The jock's stories looped around the same years. The ring leader avoided her eyes. It was not triumph that filled Lena, it was clarity. She understood then that the cruelty of their youth had been rooted in fear, and that fear had followed them forward. As the night deepened, something unexpected happened. A former classmate she barely remembered approached with a softness that did not feel rehearsed. There was an apology in their eyes, clumsy and sincere. Another followed, then another. Words stumbled out about survival, about insecurity, about not knowing better. Lena accepted none of it as payment and rejected none of it as worthless. She let it exist. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It meant refusing to carry their baggage any longer. The room felt different as the evening waned, quieter, reflective, stripped of some of its old armor. When it was time to leave, Lena stepped back into the cool night, the helicopter lights casting long shadows across the field where she once ran laps in borrowed shoes. She paused, not to savor attention, but to acknowledge the distance traveled. The helicopter lifted her gently, the town receding into a patchwork of lights and memories. She did not look back because she no longer needed to. The past had lost its grip. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that growth can be quiet and justice can be gentle, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help these stories reach others who need them. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with a word that describes how this story made you feel, or share a moment when you proved someone wrong without saying a word. Lena returned to her life not with a sense of conquest, but with peace. She continued to build, to mentor, to create spaces where others did not have to earn basic dignity. The girl who once hid had become a woman who made room. Her story did not end with a helicopter or a reunion. It continued in boardrooms and kitchens, in late night emails and early morning walks, in the steady choice to be kind without being small. And somewhere, a quiet teenager reading about her might lift their head a little higher, understanding at last that being underestimated is not a curse but a powerful beginning.